When I was 6 years old, I fell in love with the piano. And this was before I knew anything about time signatures or bebop. This is before I knew about chord voicings or even theory. I just simply loved the sound of keyboards. And it wasn't until I was about 9 that I actually touched a piano for the very first time. And I didn't even have a piano at home. So what I used to do was I would sit behind at school for hours just messing around in the hall, because in the hall is where the piano was. And I used to do this until the caretaker actually came to lock the place up. And when I sit at that upright piano in the hall, my imagination would just take over. So if I'd heard something on the radio at home, right, I would carry that sound in my head all day and sometimes all weekend until Monday, when I finally got to the piano so that I could actually try and figure out those notes. If it's a chord in my head, I would look for those notes one by one, like I'm sure it went. And then there was... okay. And this might be, several minutes of just trying to figure out this one chord, I remember this specific one, actually, and working it out for quite a while. It might have been an hour. And then I was like, I got it, and I loved the ways that the keys felt. I loved the sound. You know what? It's weird, but I even loved the smell of the piano. I just loved absolutely everything about it. Now, I've got a question for you. Do you remember when you first played your instrument? Whatever instrument it might be. Please share your story in the comments. I would really love to know your story. And even though I don't know your story yet, I'm willing to bet that you were probably excited, you were probably very curious, and you were probably completely fascinated. And you probably didn't have any expectations placed on you. You just played. Those are the good old days. But then, if you're like me, maybe something happened at some point and you probably started taking lessons. And then suddenly, there was this thing called homework. And this even worse thing is really horrible. It's called practice. And then expectations, because now your teacher, week after week, they're giving you things to learn and they're giving you more things to fix. And you realize there are more things that you're not doing right, and then slowly, without even noticing it, the joy might have started to fade. Please let me know in the comments again if this story sounds familiar at all. So, fortunately for me, at some point in my life, this was in my teens, I discovered jazz. And then I loved it. I loved all the piano players, every single one of them, from Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Thelonious Monk. I loved Bud Powell, I loved Horace Silver, Red Garland, Sonny Clark, Herbie, Keith Jarrett, Chick Corea, Errol Garner, Oscar P. I loved everybody, And then, without me even realizing, again, I very quickly had this very long list of things that I needed to learn. So suddenly I needed to learn about swing and bebop and chord scale relationships and this thing called transcribing, because apparently that's how you learn jazz, voicings, theory, Latin jazz, the blues. So I did what most people do. So I started practicing everything. And then after a while, I started asking myself silly questions like, do I even have this? Or do I have what it takes? Was I maybe born in the wrong country? Because I was born in Zimbabwe. I was thinking, should I have been born in New York or in New Orleans maybe? Or any place with new as the first word, or do I maybe need to go to music school? Should I go to Berkeley? Maybe that's what I need. At some point, I even started auditioning for gigs. And honestly, looking back, I didn't sound that good, because I clearly remember that whatever I had practiced at home, those things that I used to practice in my bedroom, they just weren't coming out when I was playing. So sometimes, yeah, I would think, okay, in my bedroom, okay, this is sounding okay. But out there at the gig or at the audition, not sounding good. And those things, I've got no idea where they were. They were nowhere to be found. And I just remember thinking, what on earth is wrong with me? And then one day, I came across this interview. It was actually a Bill Evans interview, and his brother was interviewing him. And I vividly remember that there's one thing in particular that he said in that interview that changed how I saw jazz and how I saw the process of learning jazz. So I started thinking about this whole thing completely different.
I'll work simply with the framework and honestly and really, and say play something simple like... Try to approximate the other thing, but in a vague way, something like maybe... They're trying to do the thing in a way which is so general that they can't possibly build on that. If they build on that, they're building on top of confusion and vagueness, and they can't possibly progress.
So Bill didn't necessarily talk about like learning more material, because that's what I thought, I've got to learn more things. So he didn't say, you know what, you just need to learn your scales. He didn't say you've got to learn theory. He didn't say, you just need licks or longer lines. Instead, he talked about developing ideas. So that's the one thing that he spoke about. And he spoke about taking something small, but not just small, but manageable. So something that's within your reach. And then he said you've got to play it sincerely. So he said you've got to take an idea and be as honest with yourself as possible. And then what you have to do with this idea is to go deeper with the idea. And that right there is when everything clicked for me. Because the problem wasn't necessarily that I didn't know enough. I'd gone through a lot of books, and to be honest, I had the information. So I definitely did not have an information problem. I felt that's what Bill Evans was actually saying to me. Like, Owen, you do not have an information problem, The problem actually was I was trying to learn too much at once, to the point where I was never mastering even the most basic things. I'm talking about basic things like inversions. Like, could I take an E minor 7 chord, for instance, and go... Well, it's funny, but if I can't do that, how might I play this voicing over a C major 7 chord? Beautiful thing right there, But what is it when you look closely? That's just inversions of an E minor chord. So I've made my voicing look fancy. That C major 7 voicing, all I did is I'm playing C in the bass, and then I'm playing E minor 7 voicings in my right hand. This is basic information, So unfortunately, with my most noble intentions, without even knowing, I was losing the thing that had me fall in love with music in the very first place. So I'm talking about that curiosity. I'm talking about that connection with the sound that I had at the age of 6 or 7. I'm talking about the joy of making music. I wasn't even playing music anymore. You know how we call this playing the piano and not doing the piano? I don't think I was playing anymore. I was actually trying to just keep up and to survive, to be honest, because there's so much information. But once I became aware of this mistake, and then once I became aware that I had to work deeper on concepts, I've mentioned inversions. things like chord progressions. It could be simple things like 2-5-1s. And it could be playing them maybe in different keys. So once I realized that I had to start working deeper on concepts instead of wider, and wider just means me trying to learn everything and a lot of things. So once I started going deeper, everything about my playing and my mindset started to shift. So my playing suddenly became clearer, it became more musical, and most importantly, it became more personal. So now, right now, I actually enjoy playing the piano, and I enjoy playing even the simplest of melodies, just like I did when I was 10. Because at some point, unless it made people make faces, then I was like, nah, I'm not satisfied with that, But now, I actually enjoy playing melodies. I enjoy playing folk songs, anything really, as long as it's music and as long as it's the piano, I love it. So, this idea of learning too many things at once is actually the first of 5 major mistakes that I see musicians making when trying to learn jazz. And to be honest, I made a lot of these mistakes myself. So I do know what I'm talking about, right? So this is exactly what I am going to be breaking down in a free live workshop that I'm hosting on Thursday. And why Thursday? Because Thursday is International Jazz Day. So I'm going to do this workshop on Zoom. So I'm going to show you why most people, particularly people learning jazz, why they get stuck for years. And I'm also going to tell you what to focus on so that you can actually improve and enjoy making music. So if any part of this story felt familiar to you, I would really encourage you to join me. I'm going to put a link to that workshop in the description. So please do join me for that. I want you to remember that your goal when you are learning is not always to just learn more. It's actually to get back to why you started playing music in the first place. So try and remember the feeling, try and remember why you loved it. Maybe sometimes you get discouraged and you're thinking, oh, I'm not cut out for this, or maybe this is just not for me, So I'm hoping to see you on Thursday, and we'll deal with not just this one mistake, but the other 4 as well. I will be going deeper into them, but most importantly, I'll be giving you a solution. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please do. That will really help the channel to grow, and it will make more people aware of little things like this and how to become a better musician in general. So hope to see you on Thursday. Take care.